Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anjalila chapter 13, Pastimes with Jagadananda Pandit and Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. Traveling in this way, Raghunath Bhatta soon arrived at Jagannath Puri. There he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great delight and fell at his lotus feet. Raghunath Bhatta fell straight as a rod at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then the Lord embraced him, knowing well who he was. Raghunath offered respectful obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on behalf of Tapana Mishra and Chandrasekhara, and the Lord also inquired about them. "It is very good that you have come here," the Lord said. "Now go see the lotus-eyed Lord Jagannath. Today you will accept prasadam here at my place." The Lord asked Govinda to arrange for Raghunath Bhatta's accommodation and then introduced him to all the devotees headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami. Thus Raghunath Bhatta lived with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continuously for 8 months, and by the Lord's mercy he felt increasing transcendental happiness every day. He would periodically cook rice with various vegetables and invite Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home. Raghunath Bhatta was an expert cook. Whatever he prepared tasted just like nectar. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would accept with great satisfaction all the food he prepared. After the Lord was satisfied, Raghunath Bhatta would eat his remnants. When Ramdas Vishvasha met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord did not show him any special mercy, although this was their first meeting. Within his heart, Ramdas Vishvasha was an impersonalist who desired to merge into the existence of the Lord, and he was very proud of his learning. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the omniscient Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can understand the heart of everyone, and thus he knew all these things. Ramdas Vishvasha then took up residence in Jagannath Puri and taught the Kavya Prakash to the Patanayaka family, the descendants of Bhavananda Rai. After 8 months, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to Raghunath Bhatta, the Lord flatly forbade him to marry. "Do not marry," the Lord said. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Raghunath Bhatta, "When you return home, serve your aged father and mother, who are devotees, and try to study Srimad Bhagavatam from a pure Vaishnava who has realized God." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu concluded, "Come again to Nilachal, Jagannath Puri." After saying this, the Lord put his own neck beads on Raghunath Bhatta's neck. Then the Lord embraced him and bade him farewell. Overwhelmed with ecstatic love, Raghunath Bhatta began to cry due to imminent separation from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After taking permission from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees, headed by Swarup Damodar, Raghunath Bhatta returned to Varanasi. In accordance with the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he continuously rendered service to his mother and father for 4 years. He also regularly studied Srimad Bhagavatam from a self-realized Vaishnava. Then his parents died at Kashi Varanasi, and he became detached. He therefore returned to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, giving up all relationship with his home. As previously, Raghunath remained continuously with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 8 months. Then the Lord gave him the following order: "My dear Raghunath, On my order, go to Vrindavan and live there under the care of Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis. In Vrindavan, you should chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 24 hours a day and read Srimad Bhagavatam continuously. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will very soon bestow his mercy upon you. After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Raghunath Bhatta, and by the Lord's mercy, Raghunath was enlivened with ecstatic love for Krishna. At a festival, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been given some unspiced betel and a garland of tulasi leaves, 14 cubits long. The garland had been worn by Lord Jagannath. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the garland and betel to Raghunath Bhatta, who accepted them as a worshipful deity and preserved them very carefully. Taking permission from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Raghunath Bhatta then departed for Vrindavan. When he arrived there, he put himself under the care of Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis. When reciting Srimad Bhagavatam in the company of Rupa and Sanatan, Raghunath Bhatta would be overwhelmed with ecstatic love for Krishna. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he experienced the symptoms of ecstatic love, tears, trembling and faltering of the voice. His eyes filled with tears and his throat became choked, and thus he could not recite Srimad Bhagavatam. His voice was as sweet as a cuckoo's, and he would recite each verse of Srimad Bhagavatam in 3 or 4 tunes. Thus his recitations were very sweet to hear. When he recited or heard about the beauty and sweetness of Krishna, he would be overwhelmed with ecstatic love and become oblivious to everything. Thus Raghunath Bhatta surrendered fully at the lotus feet of Lord Govinda, and those lotus feet became his life and soul. Subsequently, Raghunath Bhatta ordered his disciples to construct a temple for Govinda. He prepared various ornaments for Govinda, including a flute and shark-shaped earrings. Raghunath Bhatta would neither hear nor speak about anything of the material world. He would simply discuss Krishna and worship the Lord day and night. He would not listen to blasphemy of a Vaishnava, nor would he listen to talk of a Vaishnava's misbehavior. He knew only that everyone was engaged in Krishna's service. He did not understand anything else. When Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was absorbed in remembrance of Lord Krishna, he would take the tulasi garland and the prasadam of Lord Jagannath, given to him by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, bind them together and wear them on his neck. Thus I have described the powerful mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by which Raghunath Bhatta Goswami remained constantly overwhelmed with ecstatic love for Krishna. In this chapter I have spoken about 3 topics: Jagadananda Pandit's visit to Vrindavan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's listening to the song of the Dasi at the temple of Jagannath, and how Raghunath Bhatta Goswami achieved ecstatic love of Krishna by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaura Hari, bestows ecstatic love for Krishna upon anyone who hears all these topics with faith and love. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Chapter 14. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feelings of separation from Krishna. I shall now describe a very small portion of the activities performed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his mind, intelligence, and body, when he was bewildered by strong feelings of separation from Krishna. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All glories to Lord Gaurachandra, the life and soul of his devotees. All glories to Lord Nityananda, who is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's very life, and all glories to Advaita Acharya, who is extremely dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Swarup Damodar and all the other devotees, headed by Srivas Thakur. Please give me the strength to describe the character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emotion of transcendental madness in separation from Krishna is very deep and mysterious. Even though one is very advanced and learned, he cannot understand it. How can one describe unfathomable subject matters? It is possible only if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives him the capability. Swarup Damodar Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami recorded all these transcendental activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in their notebooks. In those days, Swarup Damodar and Raghunath Das Goswami lived with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whereas all the other commentators lived far away from him. These two great personalities, Swarup Damodar and Raghunath Das Goswami, recorded the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu moment by moment. They described these activities briefly as well as elaborately in their notebooks. Swarup Damodar wrote short notes, whereas Raghunath Das Goswami wrote elaborate descriptions. I shall now describe Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities more elaborately, as it is fluffing out compressed cotton. Please hear faithfully this description of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic emotions. Thus you will come to know of his ecstatic love, and ultimately you will achieve love of Godhead. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt separation from Krishna, his condition exactly corresponded to that of the gopis in Vrindavan after Krishna's departure for Mathura. The lamentation of Srimati Radharani when Uddhava visited Vrindavan gradually became a feature of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental madness. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emotions exactly corresponded in those of Srimati Radharani when she met Uddhava. The Lord always conceived of himself in her position and sometimes thought that he was Srimati Radharani herself. Such is the state of transcendental madness. Why is it difficult to understand? When one is highly elevated in love of Krishna, he becomes transcendentally mad and talks like a madman. When the ecstatic emotion of enchantment gradually progresses, it becomes similar to bewilderment. Then one reaches the stage of astonishment, vachitri, which awakens transcendental madness. Utgurna and Chitrajalpa are two among the many divisions of transcendental madness. One day, while he was resting, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dreamed he saw Krishna performing his rasa dance. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Lord Krishna standing with his beautiful body curved in 3 places, holding his flute to his lips, wearing yellow garments and garlands of forest flowers. He was enchanting even to Cupid. The gopis were dancing in a circle, and in the middle of that circle Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, danced with Radharani. Seeing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed with the transcendental mellow of the rasa dance, and he thought, "Now I am with Krishna in Vrindavan." When Govinda saw that the Lord had not yet risen, he awakened him. Understanding that he had only been dreaming, the Lord was somewhat unhappy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his customary daily duties, and at the usual time he went to see Lord Jagannath in the temple. As he viewed Lord Jagannath from behind the Garuda column, hundreds and thousands of people in front of him were seeing the deity. Suddenly, a woman from Orissa, unable to see Lord Jagannath because of the crowd, climbed the column of Garuda, placing her foot on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's shoulder. When he saw this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal servant, Govinda, hastily got her down from her position. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, chastised him for this. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Govinda, "O Adivasya, uncivilized man, do not forbid this woman to climb the Garuda Stamba. Let her see Lord Jagannath to her satisfaction." When the woman came to her senses, however, she quickly climbed back down to the ground, and seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, immediately begged at his lotus feet for forgiveness. Seeing the woman's eagerness, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Lord Jagannath has not bestowed so much eagerness upon me. She has fully absorbed her body, mind and life in Lord Jagannath. Therefore she was unaware that she was putting her foot on my shoulder. Alas, how fortunate this woman is! I pray at her feet that she favor me with her great eagerness to see Lord Jagannath." Just previously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been seeing Lord Jagannath as Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda in person. Becoming fully absorbed in that vision, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had assured the mood of the gopis, so much so that everywhere he looked, he saw Krishna standing with his flute to his lips. After seeing the woman, the Lord's external consciousness returned, and he saw the original deity forms of Lord Jagannath, Subhadra and Lord Balaram. When he saw the deities, Lord Chaitanya thought he was seeing Krishna in Kurukshetra. He wondered, "Have I come to Kurukshetra? Where is Vrindavan?" Lord Chaitanya grew very much agitated, like a person who has just lost a recently acquired jewel. Then he became very morose and returned home. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down on the ground and began to mark it with his fingernails. He was blinded by tears which flowed from his eyes like the Ganges. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I have found Krishna, the Lord of Vrindavan, but I have lost him again. Who has taken my Krishna? Where have I come?" When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dreamed of the rasa dance, he was fully absorbed in transcendental bliss. But when his dream broke, he thought he had lost a precious jewel. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would chant and dance, always absorbed in the bliss of transcendental madness. He carried out the necessities of the body, such as eating and bathing, merely out of habit. At night, Lord Chaitanya would reveal to Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy the ecstatic feelings of his mind. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "At first my mind somehow achieved the treasure of Krishna, but it again lost him. Therefore it gave up my body and home because of lamentation and accepted the religious principles of a Kapalika yogi. Then my mind went to Vrindavan with its disciples, my senses. Having lost his acquired gem, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became overwhelmed with lamentation by remembering its attributes. Then grasping the necks of Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami, he cried, "Alas, where is my Lord Hari? Where is Hari?" Finally he became restless and lost all patience. "My dear friend," he said, "please hear of Krishna's sweetness. Because of a great desire for that sweetness, my mind has given up all social and Vedic religious principles and taken to the profession of begging exactly like a mystic yogi. The ring of Krishna's Rasa Lila, manufactured by Sukadev Goswami, the most auspicious craftsman, is as pure as an earring made from a conch shell. The yogi of my mind is wearing that earring upon his ear. From a gourd he has carved out the bowl of my aspiration, and he has taken the bag of my expectations on his shoulder. The yogi of my mind wears the torn quilt of anxiety on his dirty body, which is covered with dust and ashes. His only words are "Alas, Krishna." He wears 12 bangles of distress on his wrist and a turban of greed on his head. Because he has not eaten anything, he is very thin. The great yogi of my mind always studies the poetry and discussions of Lord Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. In Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures, great saintly yogis like Vyasadeva and Sukadev Goswami have described Lord Krishna as the Supersoul beyond all material contaminations. The mystic yogi of my mind has assumed the name Mahabola and made disciples of my 10 senses. Thus my mind has gone to Vrindavan, leaving aside the home of my body and the great treasure of material enjoyment. In Vrindavan he goes from door to door, begging alms with all his disciples. He begs from both the moving and the inert inhabitants, the citizens, the trees and the creepers. In this way he lives on fruits, roots and leaves. The gopis of Brajabhumi always taste the nectar of Krishna's attributes, his beauty, his sweetness, his aroma, the sound of his flute, and the touch of his body. My mind's 5 disciples, the senses of perception, gather the remnants of that nectar from the gopis and bring them to the yogi of my mind. The senses maintain their lives by eating those remnants. There is a solitary garden when Krishna enjoys his pastimes, and in one corner of a pavilion in that garden, the yogi of my mind, along with his disciples, practices mystic yoga. Wanting to see Krishna directly, this yogi remains awake throughout the night, meditating on Krishna, who is the Supersoul, uncontaminated by the 3 modes of nature. When my mind lost the association of Krishna and could no longer see him, he became depressed and took up mystic yoga. In the void of separation from Krishna, he experienced 10 transcendental transformations. Agitated by these transformations, my mind fled, leaving my body, his place of residence, empty. Thus I am completely in trance. When the gopis felt separation from Krishna, they experienced 10 kinds of bodily transformations. these same symptoms appeared in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The 10 bodily transformations resulting from separation from Krishna are anxiety, wakefulness, mental agitation, thinness, uncleanliness, talking like a madman, disease, madness, illusion, and death. Death. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed night and day by these 10 ecstatic conditions. Whenever such symptoms arose, his mind became unsteady. After speaking in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt silent. Then Ramananda Roy began to recite various verses. Ramananda Roy recited verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, and Swarup Damodar Goswami sang of Krishna's pastimes. In this way they brought Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to external consciousness. After half the night had passed in this way, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lie down on his bed in the inner room. Then Ramananda Roy returned home, and Swarup Damodar Goswami and Govinda lay down in front of the door to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's room. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained awake throughout the entire night, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra very loudly. After some time, Swarup Damodar could no longer hear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's chanting. When he entered the room, he found the 3 doors locked, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was gone. All the devotees were very anxious when they saw that the Lord was not in his room. They wandered about searching for him with a warning lamp. After searching for some time, they came upon Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lying in a corner of the northern side of the Simhadvara gate. At first they were overjoyed to see him, but when they saw his condition, all the devotees headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami were very anxious. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was lying unconscious, and his body has become elongated to 5 or 6 cubits. There was no breath from his nostrils. Each of his arms and legs had become 3 cubits long. Only skin connected the separated joints. The Lord's body temperature, indicating life, was very low. All the joints in his arms, legs, neck, and waist were separated by at least 6 inches. It appeared that only skin covered his elongated joints. Seeing the Lord's condition, all the devotees were very unhappy. They almost died when they saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his mouth full of saliva and foam and his eyes turned upward. When they saw this, Swarup Damodar Goswami and all the other devotees began to chant the holy name of Krishna very loudly into Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ear. After they had chanted in this way for a long time, the holy name of Krishna entered the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he suddenly arose with a loud shout of Haribol. We end here and continue tomorrow.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Who's gonna sing Hariya Raya?
Devi. To you.
Please, Devi. Jai Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Antya Lila chapter 14, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feeling of separation from Krishna Ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Angela Didi ki jai, jai Ananda Swarupa. Didi ki jai. Hariya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama. Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudana. Giri Hari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra. Dhara Dhara Shiva Sai Gora Bhakti Nimalacharya Maharaj ki,
Jai.
Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Sri Acharya Vrinda ki,
Jai.
Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki,
Jai.
Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Srila Dev Goswami Maharaj ki,
Jai.
Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki,
Jai.
Sri Rupanuga Gurvaga ki,
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki,
Jai.
Anand Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki,
Jai.
Sabhashara Sri Nityananda Prabhu ki,
Jai.
Sabhashara Sri Mahaprabhu ki, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Kiri Govardhan ki,
Jai.
Dasi Maharani ki,
Jai.
Ganga Yamuna Ju ki,
Jai.
Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki, Sri Navadvip Dham ki,
Jai.
Sri Mayapur Dham ki,
Jai.
Sri Vrindavan Dham ki,
Jai.
Sri Purushottama Dham ki,
Jai.
Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju ki,
Jai.
Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki,
Jai.
Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat West London Chapter ki,
Jai.
Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat East London Chapter ki,
Jai.
all glories to the assembled devotees ki,
Jai.
all glories to the world devotees ki,
Jai.
Harinam Sankirtan ki,
Jai.
Nitai Gaur Premanande,
Hari Hari Bol.
Panchakalpatu, yeah, this is my favorite topic.